Same neck of the woods.
Is it? There you go. There you go. Nice. Sweet,
Right.
man.
Yep. So let's start again.
Yep.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to 12 Hats Radio. And today's special guest is Goose McGrath in Sydney. Very inspirational bloke. He actually has gone from being broke and bankrupt and drug addict until building a six-figure business in real estate. And Goose, with all my guests, can you give me a 3-minute elevator pitch on what you're all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, just to keep it down to an elevator pitch, what my passion is and what we've built our business around is helping people to build scalable property portfolios that pay them money, grow in value, and give them the freedom that they ultimately desire. So specifically, my passion is about helping entrepreneurs and business owners to turn their profits into wealth and residual income streams so they can have the freedom and autonomy to pursue their passions within their business and live a more fulfilled life.
Awesome. And how did this all started? How did this all come about?
Well, that is a good and interesting question. So my background is not in real estate at all. My background is in organizing music festivals. So if you think of, whatever, any kind of large music festival in the world, I've pretty much done it. Everything from Burning Man's to Olympics to even Olympics is sports, obviously, but all kinds of stuff. 15 years of doing that and pretty much living on the road. I developed a pretty unhealthy lifestyle. Is probably the best way of putting it.
Mm.
And at the end of 15 years, I was organizing my music festivals and all of that kind of stuff. And through a series of unfortunate events, I basically ended up broke and bereft of really much going for me in my life. So part of the kind of journey to transition from that kind of rock bottom point, I guess you would say, was that me and my partner Gabby thought, look, let's try and invest in property, right? Because I hear that's how people get rich, right? And so I wanted to try and create a future outside of the chaos that was my business at the time. Now, in doing so, we kind of went and made all the mistakes straight out of the gate. We bought the wrong property in the wrong place at the wrong time. We did nothing right, but then that turned into a huge learning lesson for us and sparked a passion within me to learn how to master the game of real estate. And then through that learning, I have been able to apply that in helping others to do exactly the same.
Awesome. And what is the one thing you have known now, which you wish you knew at the start of your career?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. So the thing that I wish I had known at the start, the thing that I know now that I wish I'd known at the start, I would say that in growing a business, bigger is not better.
Yeah,
that's what I would say. We, as a young business, once we started to find success in growing the business, we were like, yahoo, whoa, yeah, let's, bigger, better, faster, more. And then we very quickly realized that actually quality is much more important than quantity.
Mm.
And we've kind of restructured our whole company, designed around specifically finding the people that we can serve the best, with the most passion and deliver the greatest results. And that, for us as business owners, gives us a much more fulfilling existence, which is ultimately what we're aiming to help other business owners with as well. So we're walking the talk as well. So
awesome. And what are some of the great resources that have helped you along your journey?
Yeah, that is another good question. So some of the important resources that have helped me along my journey, I think that my journey is very atypical because I would not consider myself to be a classic real estate professional. Mm. I don't wear suits. I don't care about nice cars, and I don't spend all day looking over the latest, property data, and shouting it from the rooftops. My passion in business is about serving others, and I've also got a passion for marketing and strategy and things like that. So one of the greatest resources that one of the greatest books that I've read certainly this year was Good to Great, because it gave me a perspective on actually building a great business, not a fast and short one. And I think a lot of the time, as human beings, we get caught in the near field vision of thinking, okay, what do I want in the next year or 12 months or whatever? But actually taking a bit of a broader view into actually who and what I want my company to be has actually given me a perspective of like, actually, how do I play a 30-year game and not a 3-year game? And I think that's been one of the best resources that I've tapped into. Aside from that, though, I would say education. You know, there was one particular course that I did, and I'm still getting mentored by the guy I did the course by, and it transformed my life from someone who didn't know how to run a business or didn't know how to do any marketing to someone who could create multiple 6 figures of income in 12 months.
Fantastic. And speaking of education, what have you read or listened to lately that has inspired you?
So at the moment, I'm doing both. I'm doing a read and a listen, and it's of Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, which is a very big book. And I'm actually systematically going through the audio book, and I'm doing that every day. I've got a pretty voracious reading habit. So I've read about 30 books so far this year, and there's been a lot of good ones in there. But right now, I'm getting the most inspiration from Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, largely because it's full of bite-sized pieces of information, as opposed to being like one big book full of one big idea. It is a big book full of a lot of big ideas and relating to health and wealth and intellect. And so I'm finding there's a lot of really great, short, sharp takeaways that I can apply in my life straight away.
Awesome. And on another side of the coin, what is the one myth about real estate investment that you wish to dispel right now?
That it's only for rich people, I think is one of the stupidest things out there. A lot of people think that to invest in real estate, you've got to have a lot of money. They maybe live in Sydney or Melbourne. Most of the population lives in those two population centers. And you look at the average house price there, it's about $1 million in each city. And so a lot of people think that to invest in real estate, you need to go and spend $650 million, something like that. The biggest issue that I see with that is there's a couple of things. Firstly, you're going to end up with a negatively geared property. And when people invest in negatively geared properties, they're essentially buying businesses that lose money, right? Yes. So if you think about it from that perspective, a real estate asset is just a business, right? And it's in the business of selling an accommodation solution. So, and a lot of the time, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that you can't get capital growth and get cash flow at the same time. And this is actually one of the things that I'm most passionate about, because we've actually worked out that if you do the right research, do the right work, you can find those areas where you can get both capital growth and positive cash flow at the same time. And you can do that at an affordable price point. So that suddenly opens it up to a lot of people to have lower risk and higher returns, and ultimately get to freedom faster. You can essentially achieve those, what used to be in the old way of doing it, 30-year freedom goals through property, financial freedom. And you can do that in 5 to 10 years, pretty much starting from zero.
Awesome. And of course, life is not about success. And I'm sure you got quite a few here. Have you had any failures, and what were the lessons learned?
Yeah, so I don't think of them as failures. I just think of them as lessons and learnings. And that's not lip service either. Like, I was going to say, my biggest failure is, and I was like, actually, I don't see any of it as a failure. It's just it's a beautiful and complex tapestry of sometimes very challenging experiences.
Yes.
But nonetheless, I literally would not change it all for the world. So I would say the biggest, one of the greatest learning experiences that I've had certainly in my adult life was growing a business with my events company that operated in 3 different continents, and it's had a huge degree of outward success. Ran my own music festival, did all this kind of stuff, and then basically bankrupted it all and lost everything, and I had nothing.
Yeah.
So what I learned from that was that I actually had to invest in, not just like, I had to invest outside the business. Like, creating a business and creating a job is not what we're in it for. And I learned a very big lesson that I needed to have a safety net, because if I didn't create my own safety net, if I didn't have a safety net of skills, but also resources, then I would find myself potentially in the same position again in the future, basically with nothing at the end of the day. So that's been my biggest lesson, is to make sure that I'm always hedging to ensure that I've got a good, secure future ahead.
Yeah. And what's driving your curiosity right now?
Artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah, totally. So we're actually investing in, so a lot of real, anyone listening to this is probably thinking, oh yeah, real estate guy. Yeah. Like Ray White or something like
Yeah.
that. We believe that healthy portfolios that can deliver freedom and fulfillment are made out of cash flow positive, high growth area, value add potential properties.
Yeah.
Finding those is actually quite challenging because if you could get all three easily, everyone would do it, right?
Yeah.
So the challenge then is how to find those opportunities and how to position yourself at the right point in the market to get the best results. Now, a lot of people will talk a lot of talk and they'll read a few reports. However, we are we're not trying to, we are successfully already leveraging machine learning to give us a leading edge advantage to finding opportunities before anybody else will. And so we're leaning more into that and investing in that technology and those processes so that we can have a truly digital physical synthesis,
Yeah.
digitally based and physically enhanced to get better results for our clients.
Oh, awesome. Man. I think that's the way to go. I think we will see more and more machine learning, artificial intelligence. Well, it's probably the technology that's going to define this decade because everyone's locked down. They've got to have more and more of that stuff to open up industries. I think that's quite ahead of the curve. I say kudos to you, mate.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting place to be, and it's funny because it's all just logic and maths.
Yeah.
Like everyone thinks artificial intelligence and they think of things like Terminator, right?
Yeah.
And it's like actually it's just equations. Like they're just equations, and you can feed and grow an algorithm with a machine learning, much like you would grow and feed and take care of a child. And you got to treat it the same way, because if you feed it bad information, you end up with a bad algorithm. It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
That's nice stuff. Absolutely. And finally, can you share a lighthearted story for my listeners?
Yeah, so probably a good one would be my name, Goose.
Yeah.
So a lot of people ask about that, particularly for someone who's in the real estate space. You can't. It doesn't sound very professional, but I've been called Goose ever since I was 14 years old, and it stuck with me. For the majority of my life now. And that kind of story unfolded in a really unique way. So back when I was 14 years old, I grew up in a small country town in regional Victoria, and me and my mate Jimmy, we both had long hair at the time. We were like 14 years old, and we had the first like skateboard crew in the town, and we're doing all that kind of stuff. And so one Sunday, I remember this one Sunday, we're skateboarding around, me and Jimmy. We're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We thought, let's go visit our friend Holly, right? And Holly lived up the hill, and she lived in a different part of the town. And we're like, okay, cool, let's go skateboard up and see Holly. So we got there, and my mate Jimmy went to the front door, knocked on the front door, and I'm standing off on the footpath, out the front of the yard, fair way away from the door. And Holly's older brother, Mitch, opened up the door. And he opened up the door, and he was wild-eyed. He was looking crazy, and he was like looking like a madman. And Jimmy's standing right in front of him, but he's looking at me all the way down the end of the driveway. Jimmy's asking questions like, hey, Mitch, is Holly here? And he's like, nah, man, she's not here. And the wild eyes are all over the place. And he's looking like, he's freaking out and tripping out. And we were 14-year-old kids from the country, so we didn't really understand what this behavior was, what was really going on here. So we were a little confused. And this went on for a little bit. And he's like, no, she's not here, man. And he's been like a real space cadet. Anyway, so we left. And about an hour later, Holly gets home, and she walks into the house. Her brother Mitch is on the couch. She says, oh, hey, Mitch, how's it going? And he jumps up, and he jumps onto the back of the couch. She goes, some goose came looking for you. And she's like, what? You mean a guy? He goes like, no. It was this goose, and it had long brown hair, and it was talking to me. And it stuck ever since.
That's a classic.
It's good. It's good. So I'm pretty fond of it, and I hang on to that one.
Yeah, that's a ripper. Absolutely. And to wrap things up, is there anything I didn't ask but should?
Well, that's a good question. I think that the only thing that you didn't ask that perhaps you should have is if someone has an interest in wanting to learn how property works and how to actually start doing it themselves, what is a good go-to resource? And I actually wrote a book, and it's free. It's free. You just pay for shipping. Yes, it's one of those ones where it's free plus shipping. There's no hidden sales pitch or anything like that. It is just a high value piece of content which will allow you to increase your financial IQ and actually understand how to master the game of real estate investing. If you like, I can tell people where to get that, or it's up to you.
Well, we'll put that in the show notes, and I'm sure that a few of my listeners will be interested in getting a copy.
Awesome. Sounds good.
And where else can we find you, Gus?
Best place to find me, I've actually got a podcast as well. So if you head to theinvestorlab.com.au, you can check that out. We have weekly and sometimes much more frequently episodes on how to achieve greater levels of freedom, choice, and abundance in your life. We do talk about real estate, but we talk about heaps of other cool stuff too. So I'm sure you're going to get a lot of good vibes out of that. So just head there.
No worries. And thanks so much for coming on the show.
My absolute pleasure. It's been a delight.
Cheers, mate.